really just keep going. Keep Pick yourself up and keep going. And that is what I have done throughout my entire life. And it sounds easier said than done, but I think there are times when, we can give in to those moments where we feel defeated, whatever it is. Just having the mindset that I can do anything, that I am ambitious, that I am determined, and that I can really, whatever I put my mind to, I'm going to make it happen.
Monique, we're so excited to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to chat with you.
We're here with Monique Volz. She is the CEO, founder of Ambitious Kitchen. You've probably seen her recipes literally everywhere. You have like almost 1 million Instagram followers, like 200,000 TikTok followers. You've just blown up, and mostly you're known for this amazing food blog you have called Ambitious Kitchen. When you're at a party, people ask you what you do. How do you introduce yourself?
It's so funny. I think when you ask a lot of like bloggers this, they have a very interesting answer. I will say that I have a recipe website first and foremost. I don't like to call myself like an influencer, or I'll say like I'm a content creator, but most of the time I will say I have a recipe website. And now I can say I'm an author of a cookbook. My cookbook's coming out this fall. So I will probably lead with that one. Just because sometimes people are like, what is a recipe website? What does that mean?
I don't know about you, but sometimes I don't know why, because it's a legitimate job, but I almost feel embarrassed. I'll be like, oh, I have this like Instagram,
Yeah, it definitely depends on who you're having a conversation with.
Yeah, especially if it's the older generation, like they just wouldn't get it at all. They'd be like, oh, so you don't have a job? And you're like, oh,
Yeah,
no, I very much so do.
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I would love to know a little bit about how you started Ambitious Kitchen. I read that you started it in like 2012, so it's been like almost 12 years.
Yeah. I actually started it in 2011. So I was so young, fresh out of college. I actually think I was still in college in my senior year. And I was coming into this place where I was meeting, the grief of my father's passing. He had passed a couple years prior, and I just really hadn't dealt with it. And I grew up always connecting with him through food. We made a lot of recipes together. He was a great baker. My mom is full Puerto Rican, so she was always in the kitchen, like making the most amazing dishes. And I really just wanted to connect to my parents through food. And so I started cooking all of the time and, followed a couple blogs and just decided it was something that I wanted to pursue, never intentionally thinking that it was going to become my full-time job. But I think the acceleration of social media happened right at that time. So fairly quickly after, I was able to take it full-time in 2014 and just been kind of chugging along ever since, learning and growing along the way, and just so grateful that I get to do what I love and share my passion with food and storytelling with everybody on the internet.
I love that. So I also was reading through kind of your story about starting Ambitious Kitchen, and also came across like you battled an eating disorder in college.
Yeah.
And where was the role of this blog in kind of healing from that and moving forward?
Well, I think the eating disorder part sort of came from not really dealing with my father's passing and that grief. And so when I started my food blog, I was able to kind of dive into the foods that I hadn't allowed myself to enjoy for so long. And so it was really a way for me to just reconnect to myself as well and bake and cook and feel that sort of passion and joy for food again. So it's been really full circle for me in that regard, that my vulnerability on the internet was very, very healing for me in a time where, I think the mental health wasn't talked about as much. Eating disorders, weren't a point of conversation. So just being open and honest um, was my healing journey.
Did you start out kind of being like, okay, I'm only going to make healthier recipes? Or did you kind of like allow yourself that permission? Because I love your blog because it's just a combination of like you can get the overnight oats. You can also get like a buttercream frosting with vanilla cake, you know? Did it always kind of have that vibe to it, or was that an evolution?
No, it's always really had that vibe. I think initially when I started out, I was really baking much more because that's what my dad did. I've always loved to bake. I think it's just a form of therapy. It's very soul soothing. So I think I started doing that a little bit more in the beginning, but really it's just been this combination of, you know, you can have all types of food. I don't want to ever feel restricted or, tell somebody that they can only have a certain thing. I think everybody's version of health is so unique and different. And I really want my website to be for everybody. So that's kind of what I've always made it. And I don't think it was actually intentional. I think it was just the way that I approach food and just how I live my life.
Have there been some major setbacks or challenges along the way of this 13-year journey with this blog that really did kind of blow up?
Sure. Yeah, all the time. There's definitely been, I went through a period of burnout because I've been doing this for so long after the
Yeah.
birth of my second son. Just the grind that is social media and always having to do more and more and more to get your content seen. I think it can feel just really discouraging. And I think that always having to grind to get seen or to have, your work shine. I don't know. It can feel disheartening. And so, I've had moments where I'm like, I'm discouraged. I'm feeling like I don't want to do it anymore. But I think when I realized that I had to do it for me and do it because I was passionate about it and not worry about the algorithm and the SEO and all of that. And just kind of feeding the beast is when I started to find joy in it again. So for a couple years, I was just like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I wasn't finding joy in it. But it was the rediscovery and writing my cookbooks that really brought me out of that.
It's always comforting to hear that because I've had my Instagram now for what, like 5, 6 years, and I have felt like that. So I've had periods like that where I'm just like, I don't want to do this anymore. It feels like I'm trying to
Yeah.
sell myself all the time. I'm trying to sell this, like, that I make good content. And I think that's like normal for everyone who posts content, especially for as long as you have. And just as you get into like the years of doing it, it's
Yeah,
nice to hear
absolutely.
that.
Yeah, and I think it's easy to fall into the comparison trap of, oh, this other
Oh, yeah.
person is they just started and they're so successful and what am I not doing? Like, it's really easy to get in that sort of
Yeah,
mindset. But just knowing that your people will come to you. And I think just sharing what you believe in and what you're passionate about shines through. think it feels very real and genuine for other people to see that.
absolutely. So you kind of have touched on several big things that have happened throughout your life, big, difficult things, your father passing, dealing with an eating disorder. I mean, you've had 3 kids. That's a big thing in itself.
Yes.
Have you had a best piece of advice that someone has shared with you throughout your life thus far? Maybe throughout the challenging times or even in the easy times?
Yeah, I think really just keep going. Keep Pick yourself up and keep going. And that is what I have done throughout my entire life. And it sounds easier said than done, but I think there are times when, we can give in to those moments where we feel defeated, whatever it is, whether you're going through a trauma, grief, um, it's easy to kind of just say, okay, well, I'm just going to give in to this. But um, always finding the positivity, always looking forward and ahead has really helped me. And I think just having the mindset that I can do anything, that I am ambitious, that I am determined, and that I can really, whatever I put my mind to, I'm going to make it happen. And that's really just always been um, what I've thought of and how I've kind of lived my life. And so, yeah, that's the advice.
Do you have like a person in your life who you remember saying that or exemplifying that? Or do you feel like that really just came from you?
No, my dad for sure. He wrote me this amazing letter and it was like all of these little things. It was like, watch your mouth with your mother. Like when I was like a teenager, never give up, like, be intentional with what you do, just all of these little things. And I still have it framed actually. And it's just I look back on it, even though the words were so simple, I think I just find meaning in that, and probably because it was him that was writing it.
Yeah. I mean, so I think a huge part of keep going is you have to keep going, but also make sure that you're like healing from what has occurred in your life. How
Yes.
did you find that healing through these difficult moments? Like these years in college, I just can't imagine how hard that was. Like your dad's passing and then you start developing this really unhealthy relationship with food. And how did you or what was the moment where you're like, I feel like I'm over this severe hardship?
It took a long time, to be honest. I think, it was years of me just really being in a toxic relationship with myself, with food, with in relationships, and I think I came to a point where I was so unhealthy and so unhappy. I landed in the hospital and I was like, "Okay, like, enough is enough. I really have to deal with whatever is going on." I was also at the point where I was about to graduate and I was like, I'm scared for kind of what happens next. And so um I went to see a therapist and that completely changed my life. I mean, she was just this magical human being. And, it took years of therapy to get to a place where I felt comfortable with a food and like unpacking all of the grief because it wasn't just like my father's passing. It was like all of this stuff that had happened during my childhood that was affecting me that I hadn't really dealt with. And so, sometimes it just takes time. It takes time to, kind of assess and realize what's going on. But I think that if you can work on yourself and self healing, then, you can really get to a place where um, you can keep going and, you feel really good.
Yeah. Were there specific tools that you remember your therapist giving you that were like especially helpful?
Yeah. There's always this analogy she referred to, but she was like, you are wearing a backpack with a ton of bricks in it and you need to like unpack that and take out all of those bricks because you were going to feel so much lighter and so just and also really just talking to myself about the things that were happening like okay brain, like you are in a safe space now, you don't have to repeat the patterns, you're not in your childhood, you're not dealing with that trauma anymore. So it was a lot of little tools and a lot of really, really hard work. It was not an easy time in my 20s, at all, but, I think that work got me to a place where I am today.
Yeah. If you are listening to this podcast, you are probably a fan of inspirational quotes. And if that's the case, then you should check out my book. I feel that it's a cute little retro book with each chapter being a different emotion and then quotes that can help you with that emotion. So if you're looking to support me or the show, if you need a cute little gift for a friend or just something to flip through when you're feeling down one day, then this book is for you. You can purchase it at quotesbychristy.com, which is my website, or the link will be in the show notes. On a lighter side of life, well, do you have a best piece of cooking or baking advice that someone has given you, or maybe that you've learned yourself?
I I think season as you go. So every
Mm,
layer should have salt or seasoning. So if you're cooking onions, you want to salt them. And then if you're adding like your tomatoes and all of those meat, salt that. So season as you go, because that will allow your food to really just develop different types of flavors. Never under season. And then for baking, there's so many things. Cooking spray is your friend. Like when you're making cakes, even if you're using parchment paper, I recommend using cooking spray. So put your parchment paper in, spray that parchment paper like crazy. Um, Things stick easier than you think. And so that's just my trick to getting all of my cakes. I just go crazy with the cooking spray.
Do you have a piece of advice that you would give to someone who is struggling in the kitchen, who is struggling to either find the motivation to make healthy recipes or recipes in general, who doesn't know where to start?
Buying a cookbook, like a straightforward cookbook, could be really helpful because you have it right in front of you. You're not like searching around the internet for what recipe to make. So I find that cookbooks are really just nice to have. And then you can go through them and start from like easiest type of recipe to, getting harder as you feel more comfortable in the kitchen. So I would start there. And you'll pick it up easier than you think when you start cooking, and just like the little tips, they stick with you along the way. You could also
Mhm.
take a cooking class.
Oh, that's true, and then you could see someone in person.
Yeah, it is. And you learn a lot of great things, like seeing somebody in person, even just how to chop an onion or holding your knife the right way.
Yeah. How do you feel like because okay, so you cooked growing up with your mom and, like,
Mhm.
your dad cooked, but how do you feel like you became, like, such a good cook? Was it really just, like, trial, or did you take classes or learn from someone?
Yeah, no, it was trial and error, and I think that's with all, great cooks. They experiment, and they have.
Absolutely. From the more business side of your life, what has been your biggest takeaway from building Ambitious Kitchen as a business, as this content creator and now author? What would you say your lesson was from all of that?
Outsource. Outsource things and be comfortable letting things go. You don't have to have oversight on every single thing, because there are people who can do certain things better than you can. So for instance, I am really good at being in the kitchen and creating recipes. That's my passion. I love being a content creator. But I don't like the photography aspect. So I hired it out. I like social media, but I don't want to post every day. So I hired it out. And as you grow, like, I think it's important to outsource so you can just focus on the things that you are really good at and will help your business excel. So that's one of my biggest pieces of advice. I think being an entrepreneur, you want to kind of have everything just in your back pocket, and you're afraid to, let other people do certain tasks or let them have the job. But I've learned that it's been so wonderful and freeing, and just great for me to grow my business, to just let some of
Yeah.
those things go.
Yeah, well, especially as a mother of 3 kids too. I
Yeah.
mean, how do you balance that? Like, I mean, you really have to just let other people help, right?
Yeah, it's a shift for sure. I think that being a mother completely changes your identity. And for me, it's been great. I mean, I think certainly challenging, but it's also brought me down to earth and really helped shift some of my priorities. Certainly outsourcing more things, but I think it's just finding what works for you. And that's changed for me with every single kid. So, taking it one day at a time, and certainly lowering my expectations of myself. I can't operate at the same level I did when I was, 25, 26, 27, 28. I'm at a different place in life, and that's okay. And accepting that, and just working with what I have, and, not giving yourself grace, truly.
Yeah. Would you say that would be your best advice for moms who are feeling overwhelmed or maybe wondering how they can balance kids and work, is just to have more patience with yourself?
Yeah, have more patience, and know that you will, you'll get it done. It might just take a little bit more time. But certainly seeking help when you can is incredibly important. Whether it's a babysitter, family member, like I said, outsourcing some things that you might need assistance with. So yeah, but grace and patience.
Has your relationship with food or cooking changed at all as you've had more kids? Has it felt sometimes more of like a burden, or have you still just loved
No, so yeah,
it?
no, it's absolutely changed. I used to sit in the kitchen and just tinker around with recipes, and now I'm like,
Yeah.
well, I only
That's
have
hard with
from.
kids.
Yeah, it's incredibly hard. I'm like, I have 9 to 4:30 every single day, Monday through Friday, and so I can't just play around on the weekends. My kids are, they wanna go to the park and stuff. So, yeah, my time has really changed, and so I have to really hone in on just be more organized. But I think too, I mean, 30-minute meals have become incredibly important, one pan, one skillet, anything easier to clean up. So I have really shifted, into that more. And of course, I think kids get into this toddler stage and they just become picky, even if they ate amazing when they were babies. So working with that, it's wonderful. But I also think that it's really allowed me to kind of, see what it's really like for moms, and create content in turn for that. Quick and easy meals, things that are nutritious. For kids, whether it's like sneaking in that zucchini into the muffin or adding more flax or whatever, I've certainly shifted my approach a little bit.
I mean, I'm expecting my first in June, and sometimes
Congrats.
I thank you.
I saw that.
Sometimes I fear that my life already kind of feels like just like working and feeding myself relatively healthy meals and like finding time to exercise basically takes up your entire life. And
Yeah.
then I fear that I'm just going to be like in the kitchen like 24/7 and it's just going to like take the joy out of it. Like you're kind of just like trying to feed these little bodies all day and
Mhm.
so, like, do you have tips? I mean, like, do you incorporate them more in the kitchen? Do you like, how do you just keep it from feeling like the monotony of every day?
Yeah, I think certainly like there's definitely go-to meals, letting them help when they can. Sometimes it gets chaotic. Leaning on your partner so that if you enjoy cooking, you can get into the kitchen and do that. So right now, like my husband will take all the boys while I like try to whip dinner together. Because I enjoy it, but it's also like I'm the one grocery shopping and planning the meals and all that. I
Yeah.
think it's very hard, you know, with them being in the kitchen up until they're like 2. You could probably plop them in the in the high chair, and give them some snacks while you cook. But I think those meal delivery services are really great for when you're in that postpartum period. Even the first year, or 2, it's just like having options on hand or having freezer meals. I
Yeah.
didn't freeze anything before I became a mom. Like, I was, like, maybe throwing in a dessert or an energy bite, and, like, I have frozen vegetables or meat. But now
Yeah.
I'm like, I've got, like, mini meatloaves, meatballs, like, all of the things, pancakes, waffles. I've become this freezer queen, and it makes me feel so old, but it's life. It's what they need. I have to be on top of it.
Hey, I think that's the best tip is become a freezer queen and just
Yeah,
lean
just
into that. It really
yeah.
does make life easier. I mean,
Even for myself, like I
yeah.
made a batch of burritos last week, and I was like, you know what? I my time is so limited during the day. I'm not like unless I'm developing a recipe, I'm whipping something out of my freezer, warming it up, and that's what I'm having for lunch to nourish myself. So
And it works. Somehow the body still considers it food. So
yeah, exactly.
I so I want to, before we go, also touch on the fact that you have this new cookbook coming out in September? Or
Yeah, September 10th,
okay, okay. So
2024.
that's
Yeah.
so soon. Do you have a favorite recipe? Do you have something you're most excited about that you, like, wanna tell people about?
So the cookbook is very much what Ambitious Kitchen is all about, which is, tailoring everything to your version of health. So about 70% of the recipes are vegetarian or vegetarian friendly. So there's lots of options. Like 65% are gluten-free or gluten-free friendly. I have options for everybody in my cookbook. Same goes with dairy-free. One of my favorite recipes, I mean, I'm an enchilada queen. That's what I like to call myself. So I have 3 different types of enchilada recipes, one vegetarian, one with meat. The one it's a chipotle Gouda pumpkin turkey enchilada. It is
Yum.
so
Oh
good.
my
There's an
gosh, yum.
entire can of pumpkin in the enchilada sauce, which seems crazy, but it's so creamy and luscious, and it's packed with protein. I'm obsessed. So yeah, all of the
Yum.
enchilada recipes are to die for.
Okay. I am very much so looking forward to it. Everyone, keep your eyes peeled. September 2024, the first Ambitious Kitchen cookbook. I'm so
Yes.
excited for that. Uh, last thing, because, we love quotes here. It's kind of the thing, our shtick. Do you
Yeah.
have a favorite quote or a favorite mantra that you wanna leave with people and maybe why that's your favorite right now? It could even just be right now, not, like, your favorite of all time.
I think lately, with the pressure of the internet, and I think people just getting into this interesting space where they feel like they can say anything without repercussions, I think it's just be kind. You never know what someone is sort of fighting behind the scenes. Like you never know what battle somebody is fighting. because it's easy to make assumptions about people and it's easy to judge without seeing the full picture. So that's sort of what I've been thinking about lately.
I think that is beautiful, beautiful advice. And I love that sentiment. I feel like if everyone just had that as a reminder, come up on their phone every day, we might be a little
Yeah.
nicer to each other. So,
Yeah, exactly.
well, Monique, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your advice. You have brought a lot of beauty to people's lives through your recipes and through who you are. So, we're so grateful that you
Oh,
took the time to do this.
thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thanks for having me.
Of course. Is there anywhere that you want people to go to follow along with you? We know the cookbook's coming out, but anything else that you want us to support?
Yeah, you can go to ambitiouskitchen.com to get all of my recipes or follow me on Instagram. My handle is Ambitious Kitchen, and my cookbook is available for pre order now if you're interested. So just head over to Amazon or Target.
Thank you so much. We were so thrilled to chat with you. And to
Thank you.
everyone listening and watching, thank you for tuning into the shift. Don't just forget to subscribe. Let us know what you think about this episode, and we will see you next time. Thanks.